Hi, Alistair. We are back for another masterclass, and today is an interesting one, as they tend to be, all of them.
All
Hopefully,
interesting.
hopefully for our fluency community, because this one is all about in spite of and despite. And what we're going to do, we're going to structure this in such a way that we're going to first of all talk about common mistakes. Then we're going to talk about what actually can come after these particular constructions, because that's important too. We can also talk a little bit about the direct translation from Spanish, which will be interesting as well. And then, of course, we'll talk about the challenge that we give to the people watching. So let's just start off with those common mistakes that we hear so often, Alistair. What kind of common mistakes do you hear with this particular construction?
Yeah, well, I think the problem is in Spanish is a pesar de. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got three words. Now, in English, we also have one of these expressions with three words. So in spite of. That's
Mm-hmm.
very similar to the Spanish phrase, no? Even the preposition of de is the same.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably the easiest, in theory anyway, easiest one for Spanish speakers to use because it's so similar to the Spanish phrase. Now,
Yeah.
what's strange or is we have another word, despite, which means exactly the same thing, but it's only one word. And that's
Yeah.
what people can get confused.
They do.
And they sometimes they mix those two. So
Absolutely.
what
Absolutely.
did we
Yeah.
come up with the two possible mistakes mixing?
Yes. Yes. So we said despite is just by itself, right? But then
Yeah.
Spanish speakers suddenly decide that they like the feeling of, and so they kind of say despite of. So
Yeah.
that's incorrect.
Because in Spanish is a pesar de. So they go
Yeah.
despite
Yeah.
of. So they
That's
want to
right.
put that preposition at the end.
That's right. That's right.
It's not there.
Exactly.
It's just one word,
That's right.
despite. That's it.
And then on the other hand, you have the worded version that you talked about, which was in
Mm.
spite of. And then sometimes some people like to be creative and leave the of
Yeah.
off in that particular occasion. So they'd say in spite, and then they
Mm.
continue. And then
Yeah.
that's incorrect as well, because in spite of needs the of. So that's their
Yeah.
tricky.
Which is
Yeah.
like Spanish, but I think they're being creative going, it can't be the same. They think they need to do something
Yeah.
with it, to
Yeah.
change
Well,
it. So
that can
in
happen. That can
spite, and
happen.
then, or they're confusing with despite. They go,
Yeah.
oh, it's I think there's just confusion there with these
Yeah.
two. You go, two separate things, although they mean exactly the same, and you can use them as you prefer, which you find easier, or you can change between them. Obviously, in Spanish, you got one phrase, and this is so it's so easy just to, as we say, mix them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
despite
Absolutely.
of, not incorrect, or in spite without the of. So if you're going to choose the in spite of, keep the of, just like Spanish, a pesar de. It's fine. You don't need to change it. And theoretically, that would be the easiest to use because it is really just
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
direct translation.
Yeah. Go with the flow in terms of your brain. Your brain wants to go from Spanish to English, wants to make it as easy as possible. And in spite of, if you go for that one, is a real kind of
Works fine.
copy paste, really, from Spanish to English
Copy and paste
to a certain
to a
degree.
certain
So,
extent. Yeah.
yeah.
Not exactly,
Yeah.
but more or less.
No, but at least the structure is there. You got three
The
words and you got the
structure.
preposition at the end. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's nice. It's nice.
It's very similar.
Yeah. But then we have further complications, right, Alistair? There are a few more complications because we've got the rest of the sentence after this. Now, before we
Yeah.
were recording, we were thinking, well, actually, it always has to be a noun after this. So,
Yeah.
despite
That was
the
our first
rain,
thought. Yeah.
in spite of the rain. So that's okay. A noun there after those constructions is absolutely perfect, right? No problem. That's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
That's fine. So,
Yeah.
despite the rain, I went out for a walk. Or in spite of the rain, I went out for a walk. Means exactly the same.
That's right.
So that's fine, no problem. Now,
Yeah.
where is the problem where it's easy to make a mistake is to put. Now, initially, I thought a noun, but in fact, it's slightly more complicated. What you cannot do is put, a verb. You cannot put subject verb.
That's right.
There is the problem. You cannot say who does the action, I, he, she. So mistake would be, in spite of it was raining. So the it is the subject here, no?
Yeah.
I went out for a walk. No, you can't say despite it was raining. Or
That's
despite
good.
I was tired, I went to work.
Yeah.
So you can't put that I or it, he, she, etc. directly after despite or in spite of. Okay, so there's an easy mistake to make. Yes,
Absolutely true. And I hear that all the time. I don't know about
very
you, but
common.
that is super common. Putting that subject in there is so we've got a few alternatives here, right? If you go for the noun, that's okay. It'll be all right. Okay.
Noun always works.
Well, noun always works, but subject verb doesn't work. You have to be careful there. And then so that's exactly what Alistair explained just then. But then also you can have a third alternative that does work, but you remove the subject, right, Alistair?
Yeah. Well, you've got two options here. If you want, you can either not use the subject with a verb. So you say, despite being ill or despite feeling ill, I went to work anyway.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you use the gerund form of the verb with no subject. So, despite feeling, being, for example, ill or tired, I went to work. So you've got the subject in the I went to work.
Yeah.
So because obviously you need a subject somewhere to know who we're talking about, and you've got it. Despite feeling tired, who was feeling tired here? We don't know. I went to work.
Yeah.
Oh, talking about you. Okay, fine. So you get the subject in, but just you can't put that subject directly in spite of I was tired. There's the mistake.
That's the mistake.
Putting
yes,
the
absolutely.
or to go to the rain example. No, it's difficult. It's difficult to get one with raining.
Well, but I suppose they could say it, despite it was raining, right?
Well, that's the mistake, despite it was raining.
Yeah, that's the mistake, yes.
So actually, this is a good example for the other alternative, because you can't say despite raining. It doesn't make any sense.
I see. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it doesn't, you can't use the gerund with raining. It doesn't work. But you can say, and so you go, well, how can I say that then? Say, despite the fact it was raining, I went out for a walk anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you can do is before a subject verb is put the fact that, which is a noun, the fact, no problem.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to use that gerund form, despite being ill, I went to work, you can just say, despite the fact I was ill, or it was raining, and then you finish your sentence.
Yeah.
So despite the fact it was raining, I still went out for a walk anyway. Despite the rain, you see?
Yeah.
Noun, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are, there's two ways you can do it. Despite, in spite of the fact that, then you put your subject verb, whatever that may be. Great, no problem. Or that alternative, despite feeling ill, I went to work. Now, something doesn't always work. So that example with rain doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't work necessarily.
Maybe that's the only one. I don't know. I can't think of other exceptions. But despite raining, it doesn't sound good.
No.
So in that case, you'd have to say, despite the fact it was raining, I went out for a walk.
Good. Really good. Really good. I think we hopefully made that very, very clear. And so if we kind of think now towards the real challenge for our community members, the idea really here is just to play around with it, right? To come up with a few sentences to maybe even, definitely not just one. You want to kind of maybe sometimes use the, you can try both. You can use, in spite of and despite, knowing at the same time that they mean exactly the same thing. You can kind of get used to using the of or not the of, and then actually getting it right, which is useful. Okay. You want to say in spite of, you want to use despite without the of. That's an important element. And then you can also create other sentences, maybe with a noun, or maybe with a gerund, right, with the ing form, and maybe that would be if you're finding this really easy, you can also put one that's a bit more complex and add the fact that. So despite the fact that I did this, it turned out that this happened or whatever,
like this.
So
try and tell a little you could just give some sentences separately, trying to practice the different ones, or try to tell a little story, a little anecdote about something.
Absolutely.
Trying to get in spite of, despite, and you say despite the fact that, maybe despite being something. So just try and play around with those structures. Invent a few sentences or tell a real story if you want. And just try to use them and get them right. So this is the thing, not to make those mistakes that we mentioned.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we'll be there. Obviously, I mean, if you record yourself, then fantastic. You'll make Alistair very happy. And then, obviously, in the sessions themselves, there would kind of like play around with it even more. Try to make it more internalized for you, so that it becomes more automated. We want looking for that automation. That's the key. That's the key. That's it, I think, for today, Alistair. So thank you very much. A nice one, a really nice one, a useful one, because so many mistakes are made around when that. I mean, we hear it all the time, right, Alistair? So it's a good one to practice. All right. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you again next week. All right. See you then.
Cheers.
Bye bye.